another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Lorraine Giordano, and she's of Inspired to Health. We're going to be talking about Operation Save Uterus. In September 2008, Lorraine was diagnosed with atypical uterine hyperplasia. Due to her history of unresolved health issues, she embarked on a quest to save her uterus from being removed, what she calls Operation Save Uterus, and reclaim her mind, body, spirit health. With her uterus intact, Lorraine launched Inspired to Health in 2012, a company dedicated to helping women let go, de-stress, and bridge the gap from dis-ease to finding their personal healthy way. Lorraine is certified in Usui Reiki, Quantum Touch, Quantum Energy Transformation, and Integrated Energy Therapy. She's a 2013 Bronze Stevie Award winner, Women Helping Women, and her article 50 Shades of Vegetables was featured in the Huffington Post. She also enjoys blogging about female health. For more information, please visit her website, inspiredtohealth.net. Welcome, Lorraine.
Hello. Hi, Laura.
I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Oh, go ahead.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be on the show.
Oh, good.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. I met you just a few weeks ago, and when we connected at a health fair, it was definitely, I realized that we share a lot of similarities in our passion of helping women with their health, and specifically reproductive health, and really utilizing natural holistic modalities to achieve that health and optimal wellness.
Yes, it was a pleasure meeting you, and I think it's really important for as many conversations to be had about opportunities for women to improve their female reproductive health and overall health.
That's right, exactly. And in a lot of ways, it's probably an area that's not discussed enough because there's, sometimes maybe even some shame associated with that. So this is exciting that we can bring some of this to the forefront and give some, resources and treatments for this type of issue. So let's start off with talking about what is this Operation Save Uterus and your story behind. I talked a little bit about that in the bio, but tell us more.
All right. So in 2008, I was presented with a very shocking and difficult situation. I had irregular bleeding. My gynecologist originally thought that I might have a polyp, and it was kind of like no big deal type of situation. But deep down, I felt like there was something more serious going on. So prior to 2008, I worked in the financial industry, and I was very dedicated and committed to working really hard, trying to find Mr. Right, having a certain amount of social fun, but I was always on the go. And I had a lot of different health issues on and off along the way that I never really understood, and they were kind of mysterious. So I would feel sick, get a little better, feel sick, get a little better. So in 2008, I had a D&C, and my doctor wound up telling me that I had atypical hyperplasia. So there was a chance that I would develop cancer, and so he said that I needed to remove my uterus. And he said I wouldn't be able to have children, and he really didn't give me many options. I said, is there a way, could I take hormones? Is there something for me to do? And he really didn't give me any options, except he gave me some time. So he suggested, all right, well, let's check this out again in 3 months. So what I did was I went into despair. I was devastated. And I think for about 48 hours I was a zombie. I was like walking around dead. And while waiting for a subway, in a random moment, I was listening to music with my headphones on, and I heard a voice. And the voice said in my head, Lorraine, you don't need to lose your uterus. Treat yourself nicer, love yourself more, and you're going to be okay. And I looked side to side and to see if anyone was talking to me, because it was a strong but unusual voice, And all of a sudden, I felt this surge of energy because I realized that, let's say, if I wasn't able to have a child, it was time for me to treat myself as a child, that I, treat myself as though I was making every decision as my own child, whether it be a small decision or a large decision. And so my intention to save my uterus was born on that platform, and I gave it a name. And in that moment, Operation Save Uterus came to pass. And so
it was born.
It was born, yes. Yes.
I love that.
Yes. And so...
And then what happened after that?
I committed to treating myself nicer. So I focused on my diet because as a mother, it's important to give your child healthy foods. So
right.
I based my decisions on what would I do if I had a baby. And so food's very important. Diet is critical. Sleep, I would make sure that I gave myself the proper sleep. I would make sure that I would play, have fun. And I would make sure that I'd be committed to doing whatever crossed my path in the effort of Operation Save Uterus. And so I worked with different alternative healers for, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. I worked with different alternative healers, and many of them randomly crossed paths where I met someone in an organic health food store, or a friend said, oh, I recently met this person, and we want to talk to them. I was open to any suggestion or idea that I felt would possibly help me. And I also turned within, which was a big step.
Yeah.
I figured if my body was going to heal, I would trust that my body had the ability to heal. And so I started meditating. I started breathing. And it transformed my life completely.
Wow.
So now I realized during that time that having trust in my choices and trust in my body was very important. And so even when I went to an oncologist, and that was very scary, I remember saying to him, I've been taking care of my diet and this and that, and I feel a dramatic difference. And he said to me, he looked me in the eye and he said, Lorraine, you'll only be cured through science. And I remember thinking, no, I do not agree with that, because my empirical evidence is how I'm feeling, and I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling a lot better, so I'm going to go with this. And I thank him for saying
what? That's science too. Nutrition,
exactly.
Energy medicine, yeah.
Definitely. So, and I thank him for saying that, because it galvanized me into really going deeper with, connecting to my mind, body, and spirit. And so it transformed my life so much that now I'm committed to sharing that information with women in different ways. And what I realized during my, in the financial industry, I worked as a business analyst, so there's a lot of structure, logic to it. And I was always curious, though. So that curiosity in me decided to kind of dig into the information of hysterectomies and female reproductive health. And I was shocked to learn that hysterectomies are the second most common surgery performed on women. There's about 600 hysterectomies performed a year, so that's a lot of uteruses being removed. And it's only second to cesarean sections.
Right, which is also a uterus surgery.
Yes. So what I also found is that it's 2015 now, so around in 2008, I think information has evolved a bit. But a lot of the information was pretty sterile. Even if looking at images of female reproductive organs, they're kind of medical and technical. So even as I try to blog and spread the word about female organ health, I think it's important to have a playful approach and to kind of have fun, because I think that makes a huge difference. So I like to draw. I have a cartoon character that I drew. I think you saw my T-shirt at the health fair. Creative ways to kind of shift some of that shame, some of that taboo, some of that hush-hush related to our female organs.
That's so important, and it makes so much sense because, that is the essence of our femininity, right, is our reproductive organs. That's what makes us women. And women aren't necessarily that sterile, not that men are either, but there is more of a playful, fun air that goes along with embracing your feminine. So it makes sense that would match the portrayal of our organs.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. That's such a great story. So you actually quit finance to pursue this full time.
Yes, so I love working with women. I think women underestimate how extraordinary their lives are. I think because there's a lot of pressure, whether it be physical pressure or the pressure to do these days. A lot of women are workaholics, whether they're stay-at-home moms or professional moms or single women. We're all living extraordinary, epic lives, but I think that pressure kind of takes us out of our natural rhythm, which as a woman, with our monthly flow, even with the different cycles we go from getting our periods to during birth, being able to conceive, and then perimenopause and menopause. It's all cyclical. There's a rhythm to it, the way it was designed. And so the extraordinary thing about our monthly periods is also based on rhythm. So I try to convey the importance of rhythm, connecting to that natural rhythm, working with a lot of my clients.
Oh, it's so beautiful. So, and this is also a topic that's very personal to me, and I shared this with you when we met at the fair, because my mother had a complete hysterectomy in the late 80s, and I believe in the 1980s, hysterectomies were probably the number one surgery done on women. C-section rates weren't 1 in 3 like they are now, and it seems like they were recommended for so many reasons, completely, most of the time, unnecessary. And I really saw such a shift in my mother's health once that surgery was performed towards a negative health place, and she's been declining ever since. So there's a lot of sadness that I have, regarding, what happened to my mother, and then how this is happening to so many women, especially in the United States.
Especially.
Yeah. It's almost a form of castration. That's more if the ovaries are removed, which sometimes does occur, like it did for my mother with the uterus. But there's just a lot of misinformation out there, I think. And, in some ways, some surgeons may portray the surgery as a very simple procedure and not a big deal. But it's actually a pretty big deal and, should be really reserved for the extreme medical necessity, and not just, for anyone.
I agree, and I think it's important for women. I think it's important for women to know that there are other options available.
Right.
That's right. And maybe at the time when your mom had her surgery, it wasn't really talked about that much at all, or the information wasn't there as to other options that are available.
Oh, definitely. This is before the internet. And, it was one of those things where she had an ovary that was having some issues, and, one of her ovaries could have been removed, and the other ovary and uterus could have been, remain intact. And the doctor was like, well, you're done having children. You're in your 30s. Let's just take everything. Wouldn't it be nice that you won't have your period anymore? And this is, said by a male, surgeon. And, just hearing that, it's like, what in the world? It's really hard for me to wrap my head around, like, that is such an unacceptable thing to say to a woman. And so anyways, I think things have been improving, I'd like to think, since then, but there's still a ways to go.
I think there's definitely still a ways to go. And I think, Hippocrates, when he existed around 400 BC, so we're talking a very long time ago. He came up with a couple of good, quotes that say, let food be thy medicine. But his perception of women's health was that the uterus wandered around the female body in search of peace, and would go to organ. It's like the case of the traveling womb. And so that perception in medical circles, I think, we no longer think that, but, by all the women having hysterectomies, the womb is still wandering outside of a woman's body. And so I think it's important to kind of shift that perception, and because by nature of having a uterus, men do not have uteruses. It makes us unique. And because, for as much as we know about female reproductive health, it is a magical mystery portal. It's very powerful, and there's still a lot of things that we don't exactly know about. So kind of embracing that rather than considering it something to be shameful about or something to sanitize or suppress, which I think is kind of in the marketing messages of female hygiene products and birth control and douching. And, I think it's kind of subconsciously built into our culture.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like a control thing, too, with like the pill, for example.
Yes.
Wow. So I was hoping you could share with our audience some of the best tools that you recommend for preparing the uterus for a healthy pregnancy. So this would be done like preconception. Okay.
I think to start off with, I think mothers interacting with their little girls, being aware of the language that's used, because, we talk in code about our periods, Aunt Flo, we have all these terms for it, and or there's a lot of moms who feel uncomfortable talking about their daughters, or little girls might see their moms having a hard time, painful periods, but kind of focusing on the language and making little girls feel comfortable about when they do get their periods, because I think that's a very important time, and that starts, from a very young age, and that could have dramatic influences, into being very old. So I think that's important, the language of it, the appreciation of it, rather than thinking that it's a curse and, some of the negative tones related or language related to getting our periods. So that's one thing I think is important. The other thing is being aware of what our organs are actually doing. I think there was a fascinating study that was done in the UK, and it was around August or September 2014, and this was done in the UK, and I think that the results would probably be similar if the study was done in the United States, but half of the adult women in the UK were unable to locate the vagina on a diagram. And this is between the ages of 26 and 35, which is childbearing years. So it kind of illustrates a lack of connection to their organs, and a third of 16 to 25-year-olds avoided going to their gynecologist due to the embarrassment of talking about what's going on with their female organs. Mm-hmm. So, as another suggestion, I think it's very important if a woman has a goal of having a baby to also understand the power and the role that each of, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the uterus, the cervix, the vagina, the vulva, exactly why are those things in us and what are they really doing? Because it establishes a connection and awareness to what, what makes us so unique. And not to say that you have to write a thesis on it, but just an awareness. So for me, again, trying to do research, I found the information very sterile. So for me, in my meditations, I would, and because I was so disconnected from my body, I'll share that I didn't go to the gynecologist until I was 25, which had serious repercussions in my health. But
and that was because you were afraid to? What was the reasoning behind that?
I think I was afraid to. I think growing up, my mom, I'm half Italian and half Spanish, and she, from a very young age, kind of stressed that the worst things that could ever happen to me was getting pregnant. And that it wasn't about bad grades or not being able to get into college or committing a crime. It was about the worst thing that could happen to me and to the family was to get pregnant. So I think
like
that
without being married.
Yes, at a young age.
Right.
So that had a dramatic influence in how I kind of embraced, because I didn't embrace my female organs until it was only when I thought I was going to lose them, which is, many years down the road. So, creating that connection. So, as I was saying, when I started meditating during Operation Save Uterus, I kind of sat within my uterus, and this is kind of getting metaphorically, sat within my uterus and kind of sat in the circle of my organs and tried to really understand and create a relationship with them. And so for me, and I did a YouTube video on this and wrote a blog, but, for me, the vulva, I'm so close with my girlfriends, and they all play my inner circle. They all play a valuable role in my relationships. So I considered my female organs as a girlfriend. So I consider the vulva the hottie of the group, the ovaries, the bakers, since they hold my eggs, the uterus, the nurturer. I created my own inspiration for me to connect with them. And so that might not resonate with other women, but, what resonates with you? What inspires you to kind of connect to them? Because if you want to have a baby, it's really important to know some of the basics of what's going on. Because if your doctor starts talking about it and it sounds like he's talking in a foreign language, that creates stress. That creates an awkward relationship without, because you're not really aware of what's going on. So that's another suggestion.
And I think also, just to add to that, I think it's about connecting to those parts, those reproductive parts, in a loving manner, like really having that conscious intention.
Excellent point, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And self-nurturing. So like I was saying before, if I was taking care of my baby, I would provide unconditional love to my child. So why wouldn't I do that to myself?
Right.
So what I find interesting is that, sleep, supposedly 70% of Americans are sleep deprived. And I think for women, this plays a huge role in the ability for their bodies to kind of go through that natural cycle of resetting itself, especially with hormones. There's a whole our hormones play such a vital role in our female reproductive health. And the balance between our stress hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, those main hormones, it's really important to be familiar about our hormonal balance, which I think a lot of women aren't necessarily that connected to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree in your practice?
There can be a lot of confusion.
Yeah. So awareness and reducing stress. So stress, it's kind of like there's a weird phenomenon that, working really hard, not getting enough sleep is just kind of accepted as the norm. So individually, there's a lot of women working a lot of jobs, working hard in their job and taking care of their family. So there's a lot of responsibility. But as far as taking that time to give yourself the space to just be rather than do, we're the doing, but
right.
Allowing yourself to be quiet, to allow your body to kind of reset and heal, and allowing yourself the ability just to be you. I think that's not talked about enough because there's so much information out there about 10 tips for this and 5 tips for that, but being is very important. Because even as a mother, I don't think you can do health. I think it's about being health. So if you're interested in having a baby, a great way, or having another child, a great way of creating that kind of energy, that creative energy, is self-nurturing yourself.
Right. It's really true. It's definitely that self-care component, and I think as women, we really tend to be caregivers and put a lot of people ahead of other people's needs ahead of our own, and really that's the wrong hierarchy. Putting yourself first, whether you're a mother, wife, or not, is how you can best serve those around you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I also think in preparation, I think, I was talking about diet, food. I think it's really important our digestive process plays an important role in our hormonal process. And the ability for our bodies to kind of let go and release any toxins or excess hormones. And so, there's such an emphasis on eating organic, non-GMO, which I'm a big proponent of. But really being able to focus on, if you're looking to create life, eating vibrant foods that are alive, I think when we ingest them, it creates a energetic frequency that is quite powerful. So it's not to say that we're supposed to deprive ourselves and just eat organic kale and pound green juices all the time. I don't believe, and not eat a cookie or not eat sweet that we enjoy, but our relationship to it. If we're considering that something's not good for us all the time, but we're still eating it, it creates a certain sort of imbalance energetically, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see a lot of women who have a hard time going to the bathroom, which to me is a symbol of letting go. And so improving digestion, I think, absorbing your nutrients is, I think, very important to our health.
I mean, the digestive tract is really so important. It's elimination, it's absorption of nutrients, and it's 80% of our immune system. So having a properly functioning digestive tract is vital. And, once again, it's an issue that most Americans do not have a healthy digestive tract. So, I mean, it even impacts our mood because neurotransmitters are made in the gut. So there's so much more we know about the digestive tract. And unfortunately, with the standard American diet, it's just wreaking havoc and creating inflammation that's causing all types of disease issues for our health.
Yes, and fertility, it's impacting fertility as well.
Right. And for specifically to fertility, not only if the gut's not working well, like you said, we're possibly not eliminating toxins on a regular basis, that's going to create a reabsorption, especially if the gut's leaky, possibly of estrogen, and then there could be an estrogen dominance environment created in the body, which will certainly impact the ability to conceive. And as well as just absorbing, and holding on to other toxins that are not ideal when you're creating, you're wanting to conceive a child.
Yes, and so in my personal case, hyperplasia, I remember talking to a endocrinologist, and he was like, yeah, we don't really exactly know what causes hyperplasia, but it has something to do maybe with too much estrogen. But he was so willy-nilly about it, it kind of made me laugh. But, yes, being aware of, estrogen dominance, that contributed to my hyperplasia. And so going to medical doctors, they didn't really talk about that. I found out about that through my alternative healer people that I was working with. I was very low in minerals, and I took a saliva test, and it turned out that I had excess estrogen. So I started supplementing with. I paid attention to cruciferous vegetables, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. I started eating them more frequently.
Those are great at metabolizing estrogen.
Yes, I started using DIM as well. I think what's important is that it's important for women to know that there are options out there in your diet and supplementation as well.
That's right, and these supplements are natural, whether it's herbal or even sometimes in my office I'll also bring in homeopathics to just really support the energy of the body and the detoxification process.
Yes. I think it's
so I was hoping... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to echo. It is so important. Go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to speak a little bit more about now for women postnatal, after they've given birth, either vaginal or a surgical birth, of what you recommend in helping them heal, after delivering a baby.
Okay, so what I recommend is that I think, going back to previous topics, I think that it's important to kind of, before getting to delivering the baby, really being prepared physically, emotionally, spiritually during your pregnancy, and creating that positive relationship as soon as possible. However old or young you are. So as far as postpartum, after delivering the baby, hormonal balance also is a big issue. So some women experience, extreme postpartum. And so
postpartum depression.
Postpartum depression. So kind of getting in touch with hormonal balance again. So on a different tangent, eating foods, essential fatty acids, omega-3s, so whether you're eating fish, salmon, nuts, seeds, even prior to getting pregnant, those are all very valuable for hormonal balance. But, if you're experiencing depression, I often talk about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is like a tree. It runs from our brain stem to our belly and a little beyond. And basically it helps turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. Well, actually, what you need to do in order to turn on the vagus nerve is to do some deep breathing. So, and by inhaling and then extending out your exhale, it helps with depression because it turns on your parasympathetic nervous system. It also helps with digestion. More saliva is secreted in your mouth and in your stomach. It aids in assimilation, elimination, and absorption. It reduces your heart rate, and it's been known to help people who are experiencing depression. And so why I stress that is that deep breathing, there is a limitless amount of air, oxygen, for us to tap into. And regardless of where you are, whether you're in the car, driving around the kids, or at home or in the office, you can always rely on your breath, the basics of receiving and letting go, to help. And some people have surgery to put a chip in to their vagus nerve to help with depression. But I think breathing is a great way. I also find that...
another great way is getting adjusted. Chiropractic adjustment will impact that vagus nerve and help stimulate the parasympathetics. So another great tool.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. So after giving birth, I've met a bunch of women who have commented that they felt disconnected, from their belly down. And so the breathing and, the option of getting adjusted, but touch. I think we underestimate the value of touch. So as far as touching that area, sending it some love, and creating a reconnection to that area. And as simple as that might sound, I think it tends to help.
Oh, yeah. That's back to that mind-body connection.
Yes. And then under stress, we're familiar with the fight and flight response, right? So obviously giving birth is a very, it's a dramatic shift in your life, in your relationship with your partner, in your relationship with your family and friends. I mean, it touches everything. So I'm a big proponent of the tend and befriend because as women, we turn to, coming together and being with other women and tending to each other's needs also helps to produce more oxytocin, the feel-good hormone. So if you feel like you're doing it alone and you're feeling overwhelmed after giving birth to your baby, seek out, I recommend to seek out, circles of other women to help and support.
Get support. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's so huge for new moms is, in past generations, that support was built in typically in the family dynamic. And now with our families being all over the world, we tend to be a little more spread out. And so that family support may not be available after giving birth, and that's where you have to create like a new family with girlfriends or even hire help with the postpartum doula.
Yes. Or, participating in a meditation circle or whatever it might be, whatever inspires you. It's really worth seeking that support.
It really is. That kind of brings me to my next question. Can you tell us more about the connection of reproductive organs and health as well as it's related to the sacral chakra?
I would love to. So what I find fascinating about the sacral chakra is that it is the I feel energy center. So it relates to emotions. And the element of the sacral chakra is water. And the energy center also relates to relationships, how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to other people, how we feel passion, joy, and it's our sexuality. So I think what's important to pay attention to is that, the womb is it's kind of like a cave almost. And so it's an incubator, it's a creator, it's where creativity resides. And so, a lot of women say to me, well, I don't really think I'm creative. And they kind of take it from an artistic standpoint, but in a way, we're creating our lives. And so, paying attention to the words that you're creating, your thoughts that you're creating. If you're interested in creating a baby, I tend to recommend to create, whether it's creating healthy food or if you had a previous artistic talent of drawing or singing or whatever it might be, gardening, and then you stopped kind of expressing that to reconnect to that creative flow. Because the element is water with the sacral chakra, and if you think about water relates to flow. And so I think in our kind of focus on doing, a lot of women tend to just power through, and so they kind of root from their solar plexus chakra rather than creating a connection with the root, with the earth, but that there's a sense of like I have to be very, very strong by powering through things. And so with the sacral chakra, with water is soft, really. Doesn't mean it's weak. It's just soft. Our female reproductive organs, there are no hard edges to them. They're soft. But they're very powerful. So, and a lot of times with the sacral chakra, a lot of women aren't necessarily drinking enough water, or they are feeling stuck. A lot of times, the whole goal of balancing our chakra system is to find an ideal balance for each of us. And sometimes the chakra is overactive, and sometimes it's shut down. So the ideal is balance. And so, sometimes we shut down on our creativity. We shut down on our emotions because, the icky stuff that happens to us where we're uncomfortable with those emotions, it's easy for them to get stuck in that cave of the womb. And so, if you're planning on having a baby, or I think it's important to kind of focus on releasing and clearing some of those energetic blockages that might have happened, a long time ago or in your childhood. A lot of times, the relationship with a mom, whether a lot of women had some difficult situations with acting like the mom versus a child. And so sometimes that shows up as an energetic blockage, sexual abuse, physical abuse. A lot of people say, well, I've been to therapy, but sometimes the energy of that kind of gets stuck, and it doesn't help us necessarily moving forward in life. So I think energy releasing techniques, whether it's acupuncture, Reiki or energy work, whatever that could be, I think is a valuable tool in order to help create more balance wherever you are, in whatever stage you are.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, let's say a young woman was raped, I mean, she can physically recover from that trauma, but the emotional trauma can really get stored, especially in that sacral chakra area because of the correlation, and it can really create blocks energetically. So I know you perform some of these energy modalities yourself. Can you talk a little bit more about what they are and how a woman can find a practitioner in her area that does these energy modalities?
Sure. So I do Usui Reiki, quantum touch, quantum energy transformation, and integrated energy therapy. I would say, there are different tools in my kit of energy work. As far as, I think what's important is to connect with someone in your area. Be open to, if you're not familiar with what Reiki is or someone who's good that's doing it, if you have a wellness fair in your neighborhood or ask friends. The internet has a lot of information, but a personal referral usually, I think adds a level of comfort, because I think what's key is the relationship that you have with this energetic person. But, a lot of energy healers are performing workshops, whether they're online or in your local community. So I think the benefit of energy work is that it's a way, we kind of get caught up in our stories and the situations that happen to us. So talking is very important, but sometimes we get kind of talked out. And so energy work is really kind of getting into the cellular level in a non-logical way in order to create releases and shifts. And what's important to me, working with my clients, is kind of developing a trusting relationship and, creating a safe space for whatever needs to evolve in that session. So I would recommend that it's important to kind of make sure you're establishing a trustworthy relationship. And so, sorry, I'm just going to take a little sip of water.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, a lot of the energy modalities are probably hands-on, although I know they don't have to be. And so you do have to feel comfortable and able to feel, I think as a woman especially, we have a primary need to feel safe. And then especially if you're doing such intimate work on your reproductive area. And this does not mean that there's any type of internal work going on here. I think we should be clear about that. But it's still intimate, right? And so finding a practitioner that you feel safe with and who you can trust is of utmost importance.
Yeah, and I'd like to suggest that a lot of women I've come across, they're like, oh, well, I go to yoga, and then that's their spiritual or like energetic practice, let's say, which is great. I love yoga, Pilates. That movement is very healing. However, as far as establishing, it's okay to have to approach different healers, whether it's you, Laura, as a chiropractor, versus a Reiki person, because you get different experiences, different ways of connecting. And, each person brings their own unique experiences and energy to the interaction. So,
right.
I don't know if you find it in your practice, but someone's like, oh, well, I already have someone. That's great, but, if someone's suggesting something to you, there might be value in it. There might be a reason. So, keeping that curiosity for new experiences, new opportunities to heal, I think is very important. Oh,
yeah, it really is. And, it's it's one of those things where you're right. If there's a suggestion there, it could be, a higher power that's attempting to relay a message. So it's important to listen.
Yes, and trust your intuition.
So there's also, in addition, when you work with your clients with this energy work, typically you are doing hands-on. Is that true?
Typically, yes. However, I do, with the quantum energy transformation, age clearing. So from when the time we're in the womb to, let's say, about 7, there's energetic patterns that sometimes get created that we might be conscious of or not conscious of. And so that isn't necessarily hands-on, but it's just a way I help the person kind of ground their energy, open up, and allow the body to kind of do what it's naturally inclined to do, to kind of get out of the head and allow the body to release whatever needs to be released. I found a lot of profound experiences and effects of that, including myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's so powerful. Like you mentioned, those original patterns do typically happen, by the time we're 5, 6, 7 years old, and it really drives our subconscious mind, which is 90% of our behavior. So having that realization, it's like, well, some of these patterns may not be serving me, and it's time to let them go with the help of a skilled practitioner. So with that type of technique, you could work with somebody and do a distance healing?
Oh, yeah. So I do that via Skype, or I'm going to expand into Google Hangouts. But over the phone, energy is energy. So there's a lot of profound effects through distant healing.
Right.
So whether you're in person or state, it's possible, and it's powerful.
That's really good. I really wanted to get that message across for the women listening to this episode, that if they feel called or intuit that there is a blockage in their sacral chakra related to their reproductive health, or if they're having symptoms, maybe dysmenorrhea or endometriosis. I'm assuming you've probably worked with women that have those types of diagnoses, or even, other, reproductive symptoms or disease, that there is help. And going to your website, inspiretohealth.net, they can get an appointment and receive healing, even if they don't live in the Hudson County, New Jersey area.
Yes. Thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, good. That's really exciting. And that's, could be useful for a woman anywhere. And what about a woman, even though that's not necessarily my audience, what about a woman who is perimenopausal? I mean, these women are also wanting to save their uteruses. I mean, even if they're not wanting at that point having a child, it's still nice to hold on to it.
Absolutely. I deal with a lot of perimenopausal women who are starting to kind of get some night sweats and feel exceptionally hormonally imbalanced, or just don't feel like themselves. Yeah, I think that's a very important phase in order to kind of be more aware of what's going on with our bodies physically, but also connecting to the, releasing anything that might be important to be released, and connecting to it. Because,
and I also really want to just get the point across that a lot of women, we're kind of brainwashed that there's this suffering that has to occur as a woman, like, you have to these painful periods, or, pregnancy is horrible and birth is horrible and menopause is horrible. And it's like, that's not the truth. Like, there is an opportunity that you can experience those lifestyle changes as a woman in a very graceful way that is non-symptomatic.
Yes, because I think we're on the earth to thrive and be happy. And so I think some of the narrative of, like, the different phases women go through, a lot of it, there's a negative connotation. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty. So I think that's why it's important to kind of create that connection, whatever age we're at, and trust that our bodies are serving us in magical, powerful ways. And I think this is an exciting time because there are more people trying to share information, empowering information, and it's also, there's exciting information about the microbiome and why the bacteria in our bodies, especially in our vagina, are very important to our overall health.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have a whole episode on that.
Yeah, which I highly recommend if you're listening to this for women and men to listen to it. And so, and I think it's important to note also that, being a woman is very unique and it's a little bit mysterious and powerful and amazing. And it's not to exclude how wonderful men are as well, because in order to create these, the shift away taboo and shame, there are partners. There are partners on the planet. And so, it's not about excluding them. It's about, increasing awareness, I think, in both men and women. So I think there's an opportunity with men to kind of shift those maybe taboo or lack of awareness with men as well.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, even just based on languaging, if a man is hearing another man saying, "Oh, don't be a pussy," what does that say about the female reproductive system, right? There's such a negative connotation there, and other vulgar type words for women's body parts, and I just that's a cultural thing that if we're teaching our children that that's not the way you discuss a woman's parts, that's something that we can actually shift through education.
Yes. And
and I just went there.
No, I think it's important. I mean, I worked in the financial industry. I've heard a lot of phrases of oh, he must be on his rag or she's on her, it's negative. It's not, it doesn't serve anyone positively.
No.
It just kind of creates a lower energy vibration, speaking that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's one topic that I forgot to mention that I think is really important, and we talked about it at the wellness fair, and you shared it on your Facebook page. But currently, right now, there's a petition before Congress. It's called the Robin Danielson Act, and this is the fifth time it's been presented to Congress. And basically, what this bill is about is to get companies that make traditional pads and tampons to disclose the ingredients that they're using and any negative health effects, any risks associated by using those products. So I think it's really important that women are aware that this bill is out there, it exists, and it needs your help. It needs help. It needs more signatures. So, you might consider that the pad or the tampon you're using is cotton. I mean, I think I assumed that for quite a long time. But actually, most of them are made out of synthetic rayon. And during the process of making them, supposedly dioxin is created, which dioxin is a cancer-causing agent. So, if you haven't heard about the Robin Danielson Act, I know that it's out there. It also, women are still dying from toxic shock syndrome. I think in the 80s, a brand was pulled off the shelf due to toxic shock. And, I think it's kind of surprising and shocking that by using a tampon, women are still either getting gravely sick or passing away. So there are healthier alternatives. So NaturCare is an organic. They have an organic tampon and pad, and Maxim, also has one because it avoids pesticide residue, and those brands have less chemicals or toxins associated with them. And then also
bleach.
Yeah, and so even using a Diva cup, a lot of women are starting to be more aware of using a Diva cup, and menstrual cloth pads that are organic. Those are some healthier options.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure that I shared that.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. I mean, a lot of women have maybe an awareness that it's important to eat organic fruits and vegetables because we want to avoid pesticides, and the skincare products that we put on our face and bodies get absorbed into our systemic system, and that can, if there's toxins in our makeup or skincare, that's going to also impact our health. But a lot of women do not consider how their feminine hygiene products can also be a source of toxins, and certainly if it's something that you're inserting in your body, it's very easy for the body to absorb the toxins and for that to get into the blood system and actually go throughout the entire body. So it's really important to just have that awareness about what we're using. And to your point, this act needs to be passed because right now, if you look at, the name brand type of feminine hygiene products, they don't talk about what's in the products, right? We don't know what the ingredients are. We don't know what the types of possible toxins that are there, because if we knew it, we wouldn't buy it.
Exactly. There's a loophole because pads and tampons are considered medical devices, and a medical device, because it's considered a medical device, these companies aren't required to disclose the ingredients of them. So
criminal.
It's shocking.
It's shocking.
So yeah,
and this goes back to the educated consumerism. Like the more that we know about what's in products that we use and things that we put in our body, the better choices we can make as consumers.
Yes, and because I think there's still that taboo and that shame of our organs down there, it's not on women's or men's radar per se. But this area, our baby-making, hormone-making area, is highly absorbable. I mean, like you said, the toxins and chemicals are easily absorbed. So thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, I am thrilled. I'm thrilled this is going to be part of the episode. And, on iTunes, and then also if you go to the Facebook page, HobokenChiro.com, Well-Adjusted Mama podcast, we'll have links to these products and to the act so that people can go on and easily get more information. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for being on the show today.
Laura, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.